In the heart of the ancient northern sentinel forest, where shadows weave through towering pines and the wind sings a mournful tune, an eerie silence reigns over a land steeped in mystery and danger. Imagine a night so still that every whisper of the wind carries secrets of betrayal and forgotten legends. A night where the haunting howl of wolves echoes like a spectral symphony. This is not merely a forest, but a realm where every rustle of leaves and every flicker of movement hints at untold stories hidden beneath the moonlit canopy. Under a sky draped in velvet darkness, the forest transforms into a living tapestry of light and shadow. The trees, gnarled and ancient, stand as silent sentinels guarding the secrets of centuries past. They bear witness to a time when unity was shattered by treachery, and once proud packs of werewolves, bound by loyalty and shared destiny, now warred against one another with relentless fury. Here, in this isolated wilderness, two mighty clans, the Northern Sentinel Pack and the notorious Shadowfang Pack, find themselves locked in an eternal struggle, their rivalry etched into the very fabric of the land. Amid the spectral glow of a silvered moon, the air trembles with the latent energy of the past. The remnants of a fractured unity linger like a ghostly echo, reminding all who dare to enter that this place is more than a mere gathering of trees and underbrush. It is a battleground of ancient grudges and fierce pride, where every glimmer of light and every whispered legend carries the weight of lives lost and promises broken. The dense forest, with its labyrinth of winding paths and hidden clearings, forms a natural arena for the conflict. A realm where survival is a delicate dance between honor and instinct. It is within this enigmatic realm that our story begins, a story of fierce rivalry, inner turmoil, and a forbidden bond that defies the laws of nature. Picture a young girl, perched high on a sturdy branch, her piercing blue eyes shining with a determination that belies her tender age. Aurelia, though barely 8, possesses the spark of a future leader, a fire that refuses to be quenched by the strict codes of her clan. Her gaze, unwavering and intense, scans the dark forest with a mix of youthful curiosity and fierce resolve. For Aurelia, the forest is not a place of fear, but a stage for proving herself, a world where legends are born and destiny awaits those bold enough to seek it. Yet, the forest harbors dangers beyond mere physical perils. In the depths of this wild expanse, unseen eyes watch every step, a silent, ever-present reminder that nothing in this land is as it seems. Glowing eyes pierce the darkness, hinting at an unseen world of primal instincts and hidden adversaries. These eyes belong not only to the creatures that prowl in the night, but also to the ghosts of past betrayals, the echoes of a time when unity was shattered by greed and ambition. It is a realm where the line between friend and foe blurs, where even the most innocent glance can ignite a spark of ancient animosity. As the night deepens, a subtle shift occurs. The cool, biting air carries whispers of secrets and untold tales. Every sound, the distant howl of a wolf, the soft rustle of leaves, the gentle sigh of the wind, serves as a reminder of the powerful forces at work in this mystical forest. Here, nature itself seems to conspire in the unfolding drama, its every element woven into a tapestry of destiny and desire. In this moment, the forest becomes both a cradle of beauty and a stage for relentless conflict, a place where the delicate balance of life hangs in a fragile, trembling equilibrium. In this world of dichotomy, of light and dark, of hope and despair, each heartbeat resonates with the promise of transformation. The forest, with all its timeless allure and hidden terrors, sets the stage for an epic journey that challenges the very core of what it means to be free, to be fierce, and to be bound by an unbreakable fate. For within its depths lies not only the fierce struggle for survival, but also the potential for an extraordinary connection that transcends the ordinary limits of nature and nurtures a love as wild and untamed as the land itself. As you step into this realm of ancient grudges and passionate hearts, ask yourself, What hidden truth lies waiting beneath the veil of darkness? What ancient secret has been preserved in the silence of the woods, ready to alter the course of destiny? In the coming moments, you will journey alongside Aurelia, a young soul driven by both defiance and desire, into a story where every breath, every heartbeat, is charged with mystery and emotion. Prepare to be captivated by a tale where the allure of the unknown beckons you deeper into the shadows, and where every moment holds the promise of revelation. And as the forest holds its breath in anticipation, one cannot help but wonder, what will the night reveal? And how will the ancient forces that dwell within shape the fate of those who dare to defy it? Young Aurelia was born into a world where the wilderness was as much a teacher as it was a harsh taskmaster. Even before she could fully speak, the forest whispered its ancient secrets to her, molding her into a fierce, determined spirit. In the strict, regimented world of the Northern Sentinel Pack, every child was groomed to honor the rules set forth by their ancestors, a code that forbade any contact with those deemed outsiders. Yet even amidst the rigidity of these edicts, Aurelia's heart burned with an insatiable curiosity and a daring defiance that could not be tamed. Perched high upon the sturdy branch of an ancient pine, Aurelia's small form was silhouetted against the soft glow of twilight. Her eyes, as blue as the clearest winter sky, shone with a mixture of wonder and determination. From this elevated sanctuary, she observed the forest below, a realm of tangled undergrowth and secret paths that few were ever allowed to explore. It was here, in the quiet embrace of nature, that the seeds of rivalry were sown, seeds that would grow into a bitter feud between her pack and the notorious Shadowfang pack, a clan regarded with equal parts fear and disdain. In the strict hierarchy of the pack, every interaction was governed by unyielding rules. The children were taught to respect boundaries, and never, under any circumstance, to even glance in the direction of the enemy. These rules, handed down through generations, were not just words. They were a lifeline to their survival, a shield against the treacherous nature of both the forest and the hearts of those who dwelled within it. For Aurelia, however, these limits became the bars of an invisible cage, a cage she longed to break free from. Her fierce spirit was unwilling to accept a life confined by rules that stifled her innate desire for adventure and self-discovery. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the forest was cloaked in the dusky hues of approaching night, Aurelia's world shifted subtly. The rustling of leaves and the whisper of the wind carried more than just the promise of nightfall. They bore an undercurrent of mischief. As she scanned the lower branches from her high perch, her gaze caught sight of a figure, a fleeting glimpse of movement that made her heart skip a beat. Descending gracefully from her elevated sanctuary, Aurelia landed softly upon the forest floor, her every movement measured and deliberate. There, emerging from the shadows with a carefree grin, was a boy whose presence ignited both irritation and intrigue within her. This boy, known among the packs as Damien Raventhorn to be precise, embodied a spirit entirely different from the disciplined demeanor that was expected of her. His unruly jet-black hair and mischievous golden eyes spoke of a wildness that was both dangerous and undeniably captivating. With a cocky tilt of his head and a playful smirk, Damien challenged the very boundaries that the pack had so carefully constructed. "Well, if it isn't the famed Northern Sentinel princess," he teased lightly, his voice carrying a blend of insolence and daring that sent a shiver through the still evening air. Aurelia's heart pounded, not with fear, but with an electrifying mix of defiance and anticipation. Here was someone who not only dared to breach the unspoken rules of her world, but did so with an ease that both infuriated and fascinated her. In that moment, as their eyes locked, an unspoken challenge was issued, a promise of a turbulent future, intertwined with rivalry and forbidden encounters. The playful banter between them belied the deep-seated tensions that simmered beneath the surface. While her pack viewed the Shadowfang with loathing and suspicion, to Aurelia, Damien represented a glimpse of a life unshackled by the rigid dictates of tradition. A life where passion and rebellion danced together beneath the moonlit sky. Ta-ta-ta encounter, though brief, etched itself indelibly into Aurelia's young mind. In the days that followed, she would find herself replaying that moment over and over, a fleeting flash of defiant courage that set her heart alight. The strict, unyielding teachings of her elders clashed with the wild impulse burning inside her, creating a turmoil that was both painful and exhilarating. Every stolen glance at the forest's edge became a silent invitation, a call to challenge the boundaries that had been so forcefully imposed upon her. The rivalry between her pack and the Shadow Fang was not merely a distant feud, it was the very air she breathed. In the quiet recesses of her mind, as she lay awake beneath the star-speckled canopy, Aurelia vowed that she would no longer allow the constraints of her world to dictate the course of her destiny. Her heart, fierce and unyielding, yearned to write its own story, a story of passion, defiance, and a love that could bridge the chasm between ancient rivalries. With every fiber of her being alight with determination, she resolved to follow the path that lay hidden within the forbidden corners of the forest, a path that promised not only danger, but the tantalizing possibility of uncovering the truths behind the legends. And so, beneath the watchful eyes of the ancient pines and the silent, mysterious glow of the twilight, Aurelia's journey began. With her spirit unbound and her resolve steeled, she stepped away from the comforting confines of her safe perch, venturing toward the unknown. In that decisive moment, her eyes reflected the fire of 1,000 untold stories, a promise that her destiny was hers to claim, regardless of the ancient rivalries that sought to hold her back. What secrets would the darkened woods reveal? How would the defiant spark in her heart light the way to a destiny fraught with peril and wonder? With a silent, unspoken oath, Aurelia embarked on her forbidden adventure, determined to forge a path that defied both expectation and fate. In the heart of the untamed forest, the playful echo of laughter and the rustle of leaves marked the beginning of a thrilling chase, a game that would come to define the burgeoning rivalry between Aurelia and Damien. The twilight had given way to a cool, starlit night, the forest bathed in an ethereal glow as if it were a stage set for legends to be born. Here, the thrill of youth merged with the sharp tang of impending conflict, setting the perfect scene for a contest of wits, courage, and defiance. Aurelia's mind raced with a mixture of excitement and determination as she darted between ancient trunks and gnarled branches. Every step was a calculated leap toward both discovery and danger. She had long since mastered the art of navigating this wild labyrinth, her lithe form moving with the grace and agility of a creature born to the forest. Tonight, however, she was not simply wandering for the thrill of adventure. She was on a mission. The spark of rivalry ignited by her first encounter with Damien now fueled her desire for a taste of sweet, albeit playful, revenge. Damien's voice, laced with mischief and daring, still echoed in her ears as she ran. "Catch me if you can, princess," he had teased earlier, his tone light yet edged with the promise of challenge. That taunt, both playful and infuriating, set her pulse racing. He was a force of nature all his own, an unpredictable trickster, whose presence was as magnetic as it was exasperating. And tonight, Aurelia was determined not to let him get away. With every twist and turn, the forest revealed its secrets. A path here, a hidden clearing there, all of which Aurelia had memorized over countless days spent exploring under the ever-watchful eyes of her elders. Now, those same paths became the battleground of her carefully orchestrated trap. A plan had been hatched in the depths of her fierce heart, a plan designed not just to catch Damien, but to humble him before his very eyes. Aurelia's trap was simple yet ingenious, a rope expertly tied between two ancient trees, perfectly positioned, to deliver a dose of muddy justice upon its unsuspecting target. Every detail had been meticulously planned, every potential flaw considered. She had observed Damien's habits, the spots where he liked to pause, the trails he favored, and mapped them onto the forest's natural blueprint. Tonight, she would turn his own playful arrogance against him. As the chase reached its crescendo, Damien's silhouette flitted through the underbrush like a phantom, his laughter mingling with the nocturnal symphony of the wild. Aurelia surged forward, her heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and fiery determination. For a moment, it seemed as if the forest itself held its breath, watching the unfolding contest with bated anticipation. Then, in a heartbeat, the plan sprang to life. With one swift motion, Aurelia pulled on the rope she had so carefully set, up. Instead of the satisfying crash she had envisioned, fate intervened with a twist. The rope, slick with dew and moss, betrayed her own footing. In an ironic twist of fate, as she lunged to catch up to Damien, the trap she had prepared for him ensnared her instead. With a sudden forceful pull, she tumbled into a pit of thick, cold mud. The chill of the sludge, combined with the unexpected fall, left her momentarily stunned, a humbling reversal that... From the edge of the pit, Damien paused and surveyed the scene with a roguish grin. His eyes sparkled with amusement as he took in the sight of Aurelia, so fierce and unyielding just moments before, now caught in the messy clutches of the very trap she had designed. "Well, princess," he teased, his tone light and taunting. "It seems the forest has a sense of humor after all." Aurelia's cheeks burned, not only with the sting of the cold mud, but with the heat of indignation. Despite her mishap, she quickly scrambled to regain her composure. Every muscle in her body throbbed with a burning resolve to turn this humiliation into her own victory. As she pulled herself out of the muddy pit, dripping and disheveled, the fire in her eyes only grew brighter. Each step was laden with a silent vow. This was not the end, but the beginning of a deeper, more relentless rivalry. Her determination was palpable, a fierce declaration that she would not allow a single moment of embarrassment to define her. Every part of her being thrummed with the promise of revenge, a promise that echoed in the rustle of the leaves and the distant, murmuring call of the wolves. In that defining moment, amid the remnants of her humiliation, Aurelia resolved to outwit Damien at his own game. The playful chase was over for now, but the battle was only just beginning. As the cool night air wrapped around her and the forest resumed its rhythmic cadence, the memory of her fall mingled with a newfound resolve. Her mind raced with ideas for future encounters, each more daring and clever than the last. She would plan and strategize, turning every setback into a stepping stone toward ultimate triumph. The humiliation of tonight would fuel the fire of her ambition, a fire that promised retribution in due time. With a final, lingering glance at the spot where she had fallen, Aurelia's eyes narrowed in silent determination. The forest, ever mysterious and unyielding, bore witness to her vow. A vow that, despite the night's playful reversal, the game of revenge was far from over. The echo of her promise, a blend of defiance and hope, resonated softly as the starlight danced upon the leaves. And so, beneath the endless canopy of ancient trees and whispered secrets, the stage was set for the next chapter in their intertwined destinies, a game of cunning, courage, and unyielding spirit that promised to redefine the very rules of rivalry. The sun dipped low over the ancient forest, bathing the world in a cascade of molten gold and deep crimson. In the charged air of the evening, the annual fated hunt was about to begin, a rite of passage where young warriors proved their strength, honor, and the mettle of their lineage. The forest, usually a realm of secret whispers and quiet solitude, now thrummed with an electric intensity. Every rustle of leaves and creak of old wood echoed like a herald of destiny, urging those gathered to seize their moment of glory. Aurelia stood at the edge of a vast clearing, her heart pounding in time with the rhythm of the hunt. Today, the weight of legacy pressed upon her shoulders, an inheritance of fierce pride and unyielding determination passed down through generations. As the cool air mingled with the last warm breaths of the sun, she surveyed the terrain with the keen eyes, of a seasoned hunter. Every detail, the soft undulations of the earth, the subtle scent of pine and damp moss, the glimmer of twilight on distant trees, spoke of both beauty and danger. This was no ordinary hunt. It was a testament to the strength and spirit of her pack, a challenge to prove that she was worthy of the honor that lay ahead. In the background, the voices of her comrades and elders resonated with a mixture of encouragement and solemn expectation. The hunt was not merely about the thrill of the chase, it was a test of character and resolve. For Aurelia, it was also an opportunity to confront the lingering shadow of rivalry, a rivalry that had burned since her earliest days and now simmered beneath the surface of every challenge. Her thoughts drifted momentarily to the playful, yet painful encounter with Damien. That past conflict was a spark that had ignited a fierce determination within her, a resolve to rise above humiliation and prove her. With a deep, steadying breath, Aurelia stepped forward, her movements measured and graceful as she blended into the natural rhythm of the forest. Every step was deliberate, a silent dance with destiny as she navigated the labyrinth of ancient paths. Her mind was a flurry of strategy and anticipation. She recalled the detailed planning that had gone into preparing for this day. Every detail had been scrutinized, every potential weakness in her opponents or in nature's defenses mapped out like a sacred blueprint. She knew that this hunt was not just a contest against wild prey. It was a confrontation with the very forces of nature, with the legacy of her forebears, and the eternal cycle of life and death. As the vibrant hues of the setting sun deepened into an almost mystical glow, the forest itself seemed to come alive. The vibrant energy of the hunt swirled around her like an unseen current, stirring the leaves and setting the air aflame with possibility. The scent of wild herbs and the distant echo of battle cries filled her senses, urging her onward. Every instinct told her that something monumental was about to unfold, an encounter that would test not only her physical prowess, but the strength of her spirit. Her target for the night was no ordinary creature. Whispers among the elders had long hinted at the existence of a legendary beast, a monstrous creature born from myth and forged in the fires of ancient conflicts. This beast, with its razor-sharp fangs and eyes that burned like smoldering embers, was said to be the apex predator of these woods. It was a living embodiment of the raw, untamed power of nature, and only the most courageous and skilled hunters dared to challenge it. For Aurelia, this was the ultimate trial, a chance to etch her name into the annals of her pack's storied legacy. With every stride, her inner resolve grew stronger, mingling with the fierce determination of a warrior born to the wild. She could almost feel the presence of her ancestors urging her forward, their unspoken voices resonating in the rustle of the wind. The hunt was not just a physical endeavor. It was a spiritual journey, a communion with the primal forces that had shaped her very existence. Each heartbeat was a declaration of defiance against the limitations imposed by tradition, a promise that she would carve her own destiny, even in the face of the most daunting challenges. In the midst of this vibrant tableau, nature itself seemed to test her. The ground beneath her feet was treacherous and uneven, as if deliberately arranged to slow her progress. Shadows shifted unpredictably, and sudden gusts of wind obscured her vision, adding to the palpable tension of the moment. Yet, Aurelia pressed on, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the last light of the day mingled with the emerging mysteries of the night. The anticipation in the air reached a crescendo as she approached a secluded grove, its borders marked by ancient towering trees that whispered of old magic and forgotten battles. It was here, in this sacred and hidden sanctuary, that the presence of the legendary beast was most keenly felt. A chill ran down her spine as she paused, her heart hammering with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the silence a powerful, unspoken challenge. Aurelia tightened her grip on the hilt of her dagger, its polished surface reflecting the fading light like a promise of defiance. With a final, determined glance at the path ahead, she stepped forward into the unknown, every sense attuned to the slightest hint of movement. The legacy of her pack, the memory of every fallen warrior, and the unyielding fire of her own ambition converged in this singular moment. And as the murmur of the forest deepened into an expectant hush, Aurelia's thoughts converged on one burning question. Would her carefully honed plan be enough to conquer the legendary beast that lurked just beyond the veil of twilight? The night promised to reveal its secrets, and with that, the true test of her strength, courage, and destiny was about to begin. In the depths of the forest, where ancient trees whispered secrets and the moon cast eerie shadows, Aurelia found herself drawn to a place unlike any she had ever seen. Tucked away in a forgotten clearing stood a dilapidated hut, its weathered wood and crooked chimney hinting at the passage of countless years. The structure exuded an otherworldly aura, a place where time itself seemed to pause and reality blurred into myth. This was the domain of Odon, the ancient sorcerer whose name stirred both. Aurelia approached the hut with a mix of trepidation and resolve. The air around the dwelling crackled with subtle magic, as if the very atmosphere vibrated with the echoes of long-forgotten incantations. Twisting vines, lit by the soft luminescence of bioluminescent moss, crept along the walls, weaving intricate patterns that danced in the silvery moonlight. A faint, otherworldly glow emanated from within, beckoning her closer with promises of answers and sacrifices. The door creaked open, with a sound that resonated like a lament of the ancient woods. Inside, the interior was dimly lit by flickering candles, their pale flames casting long, wavering shadows across walls adorned with cryptic symbols. The air was heavy with the scent of burning herbs and the tang of old magic. Every corner of the hut seemed to pulse with an energy both ominous and inviting, as if the building itself was alive with centuries of sorcery. Seated at a scarred wooden table, Odin regarded Aurelia with eyes that held the weight of countless years. His presence was both imposing and enigmatic, a figure draped in robes that shimmered faintly, embroidered with patterns that hinted at ancient lore. His voice, low and resonant, broke the silence. "You have come seeking to change fate, young warrior," he intoned, his tone carrying an undercurrent of both wisdom and warning. Aurelia's heart pounded in her chest as she met his gaze. The turmoil within her was palpable, a storm of desire, fear, and determination. She had come with a singular purpose: to break the chains of fate that bound Damien to a life he did not desire, to free him from an engagement that would forever tarnish his spirit. Yet, the cost of such an act was shrouded in mystery, and the price might be greater than she ever imagined. "I need to alter the course of destiny," Aurelia began, her voice wavering between resolve and vulnerability. "Damien must be freed from an engagement that binds him against his will. I am willing to do what is necessary." Her words trembled with the weight of her hidden longing, not just for Damien's salvation, but also for a chance to reclaim a part of herself she feared was slipping away. Odon's eyes glimmered with a knowing light as he leaned forward, his fingers lightly tracing the contours of an intricate talisman resting on the table. "Every wish," he murmured, "comes with a price, dear child." His words lingered in the air like a portent, as if the very fabric of destiny trembled at the thought of the bargain being struck. Aurelia's mind raced. To break the engagement, to disrupt the path laid out by ancient rivalries and societal expectations, she would have to sacrifice something integral to her very nature. The cost was not merely material, it was a piece of her soul. A part of the wolf that had always defined her identity, her instinct, and her connection to the pack. The thought alone sent a shudder through her, for to relinquish that primal essence would be to become, in essence, something entirely different, a mere shadow of the fierce warrior she had always been. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the echo of unspoken questions and unacknowledged fears. Odon continued, his voice both gentle and unyielding. I can help you shatter the bonds that bind Damien, to cast doubt into the heart of his impending destiny. But to do so, you must surrender a part of what you hold most dear, the strength of your wolf, the essence of your innate power. For one fleeting week, you shall be stripped of the very force that has defined you, leaving you vulnerable, human. His words hung in the air, a revelation that felt as profound as it was terrifying. Aurelia's breath caught in her throat. The proposition was as clear as it was devastating. To save the man she cared for, to alter the course of his fate, she would have to forfeit her own formidable nature, a nature that had been both her shield and her sword. In that moment, she felt the full weight of her choice, a decision that could either redeem her or shatter her completely. Her inner conflict roiled like a storm. Was the salvation of Damien worth the sacrifice of her own identity? The thought was agonizing. Every beat of her heart echoed the duality of her desire to be free and the terror of losing herself in the process. Yet, even as doubts swirled within her, a steely resolve began to crystallize. The possibility of freeing Damien, of altering the cruel narrative dictated by destiny. In a voice that trembled with both determination and sorrow, Aurelia finally spoke. If it is the only way to save him, then I will pay the price. Her words, though laced with uncertainty, were a testament to her unyielding spirit. The transformation she faced was daunting, a temporary surrender of her primal strength, a fleeting exile from the very core of her being. Odon's lips curled into a cryptic smile as he leaned back, his eyes never leaving hers. Remember, child, he said softly, his tone imbued with an ancient gravity. The price is not measured solely in power lost, but in the choices you make when faced with the ultimate test of your heart. Are you prepared to risk everything for a chance at salvation? His question echoed in the dim light of the hut, a haunting refrain that would linger in Aurelia's mind long after she left, as she stared into the depths of Odon's enigmatic gaze. A single, shattering thought took root. What is the true cost of saving the one you love? In the depths of a moonlit glade, where the veil between the mortal and the mystical grew tantalizingly thin, the air trembled with an almost tangible electricity. It was here that the playful sparks of rivalry finally ignited into a blaze of destiny. Aurelia and Damien, once adversaries locked in mischievous contests of wit and daring, found themselves teetering on the precipice of an irreversible bond, one that would forever alter the fabric of their beings. The moment unfolded with breathtaking intensity. Under the ghostly glow of the full moon, Damien advanced toward Aurelia with a determined grace that belied his earlier levity. His eyes, once filled with playful defiance, now shimmered with a raw, untamed passion. In that heartbeat of silence, the world around them seemed to pause. Every rustle of leaves, every distant howl of a lone wolf, faded into insignificance as fate took center stage. Aurelia's pulse raced like a wild drumbeat in her ears as Damien closed the distance between them. His presence was overwhelming, a magnetic force that drew her in with a perilous promise. In that charged moment, his hand, steady and sure, reached out to trace the delicate curve of her cheek. The simple, unexpected touch sent a jolt through her that was both electric and excruciating, stirring a maelstrom of emotions deep within her soul. Before either could fully comprehend the depths of their connection, Damien's lips descended, with a fervor that bordered on desperation. His kiss was not gentle, nor was it a mere echo of youthful infatuation. It was a collision of primal forces, a mingling of fire and ice, passion and pain. As his fangs brushed against her tender skin, a searing sensation exploded across her senses. It was as if the very essence of the forest, ancient and mysterious, surged into her veins with every touch. In that instant, a sharp, undeniable pain pierced her, not solely from the bite, but from the overwhelming rush of emotion that accompanied it. The pain was raw and immediate, a burning reminder of the cost of this union. Yet, intertwined with the agony was an unexpected euphoria, a rapture that seemed to transcend the physical realm. It was as though every fiber of her being was being rewritten, the familiar replaced by something new, something indelibly marked by destiny. Aurelia felt a transformation ripple through her body, a deep internal shift that went beyond mere sensation. The bite was not just a physical act. It was a symbol, an unspoken pledge that bound her to Damien in ways she could scarcely fathom. In that moment, the playful rivalry that had defined their encounters dissolved into an overwhelming connection that was both beautiful and terrifying. The fierce, independent spirit that had long defined Aurelia now found itself intertwined with an enigmatic force, as if her soul were being woven into a tapestry of fate that spanned centuries. The sensory details of that fateful night became etched into her memory with vivid clarity: the metallic tang of blood, the heady scent of damp earth and wild herbs, the cool, almost electric sensation that pulsed through her skin. All of these elements converged into a singular, potent experience. It was a moment when the line between pleasure and pain blurred, where each breath and every heartbeat resonated with a primal intensity that seemed to echo the ancient rhythms of the wilderness. For Damien, the act was no less transformative. His own soul felt tethered to hers, as if the mark he had bestowed was a living, breathing seal of their shared destiny. In that singular, fleeting moment, the boundaries that had once separated them evaporated, leaving behind only the raw, unfiltered truth of their connection. No longer were they simply rivals locked in a game of wills. They were now bound by an irrevocable force, a force that promised both power and peril. As the kiss ended, a heavy silence fell over them, punctuated only by the distant calls of nocturnal creatures and the soft rustling of the ancient trees. Aurelia's mind whirled with the enormity of what had just transpired. She could feel the mark pulsing on her skin, a living reminder of the bond that now tethered her to Damien. It was not merely a symbol of passion or a token of a momentary lapse in restraint. It was a binding claim, an immutable decree written in the language of destiny. In that suspended moment, as they slowly parted, both Aurelia and Damien were left to grapple with the profound implications of their fateful encounter. Their eyes met, and in that silent exchange, 1,000 unspoken questions flared to life. What would this mark mean for them? How would it reshape their futures? And what cost would come with such a powerful, irreversible bond? The glade seemed to hold its breath as the realization settled in, a realization that nothing would ever be the same again. The mark was a binding claim on their souls, a covenant with forces beyond their control. It was a promise of a future where every joy would be intermingled with pain, every triumph shadowed by sacrifice. And as the echoes of the night whispered around them, the lingering question hung in the cool, charged air. What destiny awaited those who dared to defy the boundaries of fate? The fragile bond that had once promised destiny now lay shattered in a storm of betrayal and heartache. In the wake of their fateful union, secrets surfaced like jagged shards of glass, cutting through the tenuous silence that had once cloaked their connection. The revelation of forbidden love, whispered by jealous voices and fueled by centuries of enmity, ignited a confrontation that none could have foreseen. It began in the dim corridors of the Pack's encampment, where murmurs of scandal rippled through the ranks like wildfire. For weeks, Aurelia and Damien had sought refuge in stolen moments, their bond a secret treasure hidden beneath layers of duty and defiance. But as the truth seeped out, it erupted into a tidal wave of fury. One cold, fateful night, under a sky heavy with unspoken condemnation, the damning evidence of their union was laid bare before their kin. Aurelia stood, trembling with a mixture of shame and defiance, her once bright eyes now clouded with sorrow. Across from her, Damien's gaze burned with an intense anguish, an agony so raw it seemed to echo through the silent crowd that had gathered. The assembled warriors, led by a steely-eyed elder and bolstered by the bitter words of secondary voices like Ronan, a trusted figure whose loyalty to tradition ran as deep as the ancient roots of the forest, delivered their verdict with the cold precision of ancient law. "Traitor!" Ronan's voice boomed across the clearing, each syllable a crushing blow. His eyes, red with anger, bore into Damien as though trying to sear the betrayal into his very soul. The accusation was not merely a rebuke of a single act. It was a denunciation of everything that the forbidden connection represented, a defiance of long-standing customs and an affront to the honor of the pack. In that searing moment, every whispered rumor became a clarion call for retribution. The confrontation escalated with a rush of voices and clashing emotions. Aurelia's heart pounded in her chest as she faced the piercing accusations, her inner turmoil laid bare for all to see. She tried to muster the strength to speak, to defend the purity of her love and the legitimacy of her choices, but the words caught in her throat, choked by the overwhelming tide of betrayal. Her silence, however, spoke volumes, a silent lament for the life she had once envisioned, now ruined by forces both external and within. Damien's face contorted with a tumult of emotions, anger, regret, sorrow, and the haunting awareness of how deeply he had hurt those he cared for. His voice, usually so sure and confident, trembled as he attempted to explain. "I never meant..." But his plea was drowned out by the vehement outcry of his accusers. The raw pain in his eyes told a story of internal conflict that words could not capture. He stood there, torn between the love that had once lifted him to celestial heights and the crushing burden of betrayal that now weighed him down. In that bitter clash, even the air seemed to rebel, carrying with it the heavy scent of regret and unfulfilled promises. The elders, embodiments of ancient wisdom and rigid tradition, demanded that he atone for his transgression. Their voices, though measured and deliberate, left no room for leniency. Each accusation stung like the lash of a whip, severing the delicate threads that once bound him to Aurelia. The threads that had... As the confrontation reached its apex, Aurelia felt an unbearable agony well up inside her. The love that had been her sanctuary was now a source of searing pain, each beat of her heart a reminder of all that was lost. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she looked to Damien, searching desperately for the man she had once adored. Instead, she found a stranger, a man ensnared by his own remorse and caught in the relentless grip of destiny's cruel irony. The air hung heavy with the finality of the moment. With a voice barely audible above the turbulent silence, Damien spoke his last words to the crowd, words that cut deeper than any accusation. I cannot bear this chain any longer." His declaration was a heart-wrenching admission of defeat, a surrender not to his adversaries, but to the internal agony that had consumed him. With that, he turned away, his silhouette receding into the oppressive darkness of the forest, as if he were fleeing from the very love that had defined him. In that anguished departure, the clearing became a silent witness to a fracture that would forever alter the course of their fates. The bitter taste of betrayal lingered in the cold air, mingling with the unshed tears and the echoes of unfulfilled promises. Aurelia's heart ached with a profound loneliness, the weight of the moment anchoring her to the present, while her thoughts raced toward a future that now seemed uncertain and desolate. As the murmurs of discontent and sorrow slowly died away, a lingering question remained suspended in the heavy stillness. Could the wounds inflicted by such betrayal ever heal? Or would the scars of this forbidden love define them forever? The palpable uncertainty left the audience desperate for answers, wondering if reconciliation was even within the realm of possibility, or if destiny had irrevocably severed the ties that once bound them. The night closed in around the devastated lovers, and in that moment of parting, the promise of a bitter reunion hung precariously on the edge of fate. Theirs was a love that had defied tradition, ignited by passion and now shattered by betrayal, leaving a trail of questions that begged for resolution in a world where every choice bore the weight of destiny. Under the cold silver glow of a full moon, the battlefield between Northwatch and Shadowfang erupted into a symphony of chaos and clashing steel. The once quiet forest now trembled with the thunderous roars of warring packs, each cry echoing the pain of betrayal and the promise of vengeance. In this timeless arena, every breath of the night carried the stench of blood and the metallic tang of honor, an honor that demanded tribute in the currency of valor and sacrifice. Aurelia stood at the periphery of the fray, her heart caught in a tempest of conflicting loyalties. Torn between the duty she owed to her ancestral pack and the searing scars of personal betrayal, she watched as the two factions unleashed their fury upon one another. The raw physical power of the combatants was awe-inspiring, a brutal ballet where muscle met claw and fierce determination clashed with ancient grudges. Every strike, every guttural howl of exertion, was a testament to the relentless spirit of the warriors who had been molded by centuries of strife. The pale moonlight carved stark silhouettes of warriors locked in mortal combat, transforming every movement into a scene of stark cinematic beauty. Northwatch's members fought with the precision of seasoned hunters, their eyes reflecting the weight of a storied legacy. Opposite them, the savage might of Shadowfang roared through the darkness, a tumult of raw aggression fueled by deep-seated enmity. The battlefield became an ever-shifting canvas, where honor and fury were painted in strokes of brilliant violence and mournful regret. Aurelia's mind swirled with memories of a time when she believed in the unbreakable bonds of her pack, a time before the fateful betrayal that had splintered her world. Now, every clash of teeth and clash of talons reminded her of the cost of loyalty, of the fractures that had torn through the fabric of her heart. In the midst of the melee, the faces of fallen comrades and bitter adversaries merged into a haunting vision of what once was, a legacy of unity now shattered by conflict and vengeance. Even as the battle raged, the personal stakes for Aurelia were painfully clear. She was not merely an onlooker. She was a beacon of her pack's honor, a living testament to both its glory and its wounds. Every enemy's blow that splintered a branch or shattered a bone seemed to echo the internal battle waging within her, a struggle between the fierce duty that demanded she protect her people and the tender, wounded part of her that yearned for a peace that now seemed impossible. The emotional scars of betrayal, freshly inflicted by the revelation of forbidden love, made each. As the conflict reached fever pitch, the forest itself seemed to recoil in the face of such unbridled aggression. The once gentle rustle of leaves was replaced by the cacophony of clashing bodies and the anguished cries of warriors. Shadows danced wildly on the forest floor, caught in the intermittent glare of torches and the relentless pulse of battle. Every burst of action, a swift, lethal swipe of a claw, a resounding crack of a bone, felt both monumental and fleeting, as though time itself were pausing to bear witness to the fury of destiny. Amidst the chaos, Aurelia's eyes were drawn to the towering figures of the pack leaders. In the heart of the battle, two alphas emerged as embodiments of the deep-seated feud, a stark contrast in demeanor and conviction. On one side stood Alpha Orion of Northwatch, his presence exuding authority and the measured calm of a seasoned ruler, his eyes burning with the resolve to restore honor at any cost. Facing him was Alpha Adrian of Shadowfang, whose steely gaze and relentless aggression spoke of years steeped in bitter vengeance and the unyielding desire to reclaim lost power. Their confrontation was a study in unresolved tension. As the two alphas circled one another like predators eyeing a final, decisive kill, every movement seemed choreographed by the unseen hand of fate. The very air between them was charged with a volatile mixture of respect and rivalry, a delicate balance that threatened to tip into all-out war at any moment. The standoff was not just a clash of might, but a poignant symbol of the deeper conflict that had fractured their world, a conflict where the echoes of ancient promises clashed with the bitter realities of betrayal. Aurelia's heart pounded as she witnessed this final confrontation. a moment that encapsulated everything she had endured and everything that might be lost. In the silence that briefly descended over the chaotic battlefield, the world seemed to hold its breath. Every eye, every warrior's gaze, was fixed upon the two alphas. The tension was palpable, each second stretching into an eternity where the fate of both packs hung precariously in the balance. And then, as if drawn by an inevitable force, the moment came to a crushing halt. The standoff between Orion and Adrian lingered, unresolved and charged with unspoken promises of more conflict. In that breathless pause, the audience was left to wonder, which side would ultimately prevail? Would the fires of vengeance and honor consume everything, or could a fragile peace ever be restored amid such deep-seated wounds? As the night deepened and the battle continued its relentless course around them, Aurelia felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders once more. The future was uncertain, the path ahead shrouded in shadows and conflict. A future where every choice, every act of defiance, could tip the scales of fate in ways she had yet to comprehend. Beneath a sky strewn with glittering stars, the grand banquet hall of the Silver Moon stronghold shone like a beacon of opulence and power. Lavish tapestries adorned the walls, each thread woven with the rich history of werewolf clans. Massive chandeliers, their crystals catching and refracting, the soft glow of torchlight, cast intricate patterns across the polished marble floors. This was a world where tradition and authority reigned supreme, a setting designed to impress and intimidate in equal measure. Yet, amid the sumptuous decorations and the hum of celebratory chatter, Aurelia felt an overwhelming emptiness. Dressed in an exquisite gown of ivory and silver, she moved through the hall like a shadow among the living. Every graceful step she took was contrasted by the heavy burden in her heart. The banquet, intended to be a joyous occasion marking the engagement of Damien to the formidable Celine, had become a stage for political maneuvering, a bitter intersection, where power and personal vendetta collided. Aurelia's eyes, dark with sorrow and conflict, darted around the opulent room. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation and pride as members of various packs mingled, their voices a harmonious blend of laughter and hushed conversations. Yet behind every smile and courteous nod, she sensed a layer of calculation, a reminder that love and loyalty were often sacrificed on the altar of political necessity. In this world, the union of powerful families was less about the bond between two hearts and... In one corner of the hall, the grand table was set for the high-ranking elders and influential alphas. Their stern faces betrayed little emotion as they observed the festivities, their eyes flickering with a mix of approval and cold disapproval. It was here that the true cost of the engagement was decided, not by the hearts of those involved, but by the relentless force of tradition. Each clink of crystal and every flourish of the orchestral music served as a constant reminder of the spectacle of power at play. As Aurelia watched, she recalled the moments that had led her to this painful juncture, a cascade of clandestine meetings, forbidden kisses, and the searing mark that had bound her to Damien. Those memories, once a source of quiet joy, now transformed into sharp reminders of what was lost. The banquet, with all its grandeur, was a cruel parody of the love they had once shared. Instead of celebrating a union born of passion and defiance, the gathering honored a political alliance that threatened to extinguish the very spark that had once lit their hearts. Across the room, Damien stood with an air of regal detachment, his posture rigid and his expression inscrutable. Dressed in a tailored suit that accentuated his chiseled features and the lingering aura of his wild nature, he exuded the dominance expected of a future alpha. Yet, beneath the surface of his composed exterior, Aurelia sensed a tempest of regret, an inner turmoil, a silent lament for a love that had been sacrificed at the altar of duty. His eyes, when they met hers for a fleeting moment, were filled with a sorrow that spoke of dreams shattered and paths forever diverged. The contrast between the festive opulence and Aurelia's inner desolation was stark. While the revelers around Her raised their glasses in celebratory toasts. She felt the weight of every unspoken goodbye pressing upon her. The joyous clamor of the banquet masked an undercurrent of bitter irony, the acknowledgement that personal happiness had been deemed less valuable than the unyielding pursuit of power and legacy. Here, in this hall of grand gestures and superficial gaiety, the true cost of the engagement was painfully evident. The obliteration of what could have been, the sacrifice of forbidden love for the sake of clan honor. As the evening wore on, Aurelia drifted towards the balcony, seeking solace in the cool night air, away from the relentless scrutiny of the crowd. The moon hung low and luminous, its pale light a silent witness to her grief. In that quiet refuge, the noise of the banquet faded into a distant murmur, leaving only the raw, unfiltered ache of her heart. Her thoughts spiraled through memories of secret rendezvous and whispered promises, each one a poignant reminder of the love that now teetered on the brink of oblivion. In a final, heart-wrenching moment, Aurelia allowed herself a whispered farewell. With trembling lips, barely audible over the sighing wind, she murmured a goodbye, meant only for the night. It was not just a farewell to a moment, but a lament for what could never be. A love betrayed by destiny and sacrificed to the relentless demands of duty. The soft words seemed to dissolve into the chill of the night, leaving her with a profound sense of loss and uncertainty. As she lingered on the threshold between light and shadow, Aurelia's heart beat with a desperate hope that the future might yet hold a chance for redemption, a possibility that the bonds of love could somehow defy the cold dictates of power. But even as that fragile hope flickered within her, the banquet's resplendent splendor and the stern faces of the elders served as a stark reminder. In this world, even the deepest, most passionate love was at the mercy of tradition. And so, as the echoes of celebration mingled with her solitary sighs, the question remained suspended in the air. In the cold aftermath of the engagement banquet, a somber hush settled over the lands of the werewolf packs, a silence that spoke louder than any battle cry. The air was heavy with the taste of regret and shattered promises, marking the beginning of an era defined by loss and isolation. Damien's dramatic renunciation of his claim, once a symbol of unyielding strength and defiant passion, now echoed, like a mournful dirge throughout the territory. One by one, whispers of his disappearance spread, carried on the wind like an elegy for a fallen hero. The profound isolation that followed was not confined to him alone. It enveloped every heart. Aurelia felt the full weight of this separation deep within her soul. The parting was not merely physical. It was an emotional severance that cut deeper than any blade. Her heart, once ablaze with the fierce love and unspoken promises shared with Damien, now ached with an unbearable solitude. The very fabric of her existence, woven from threads of duty and desire, now frayed at the edges. Each day became a relentless reminder of what had been lost, and each night brought with it a silence that roared with unfulfilled longing. As news of Damien's decision rippled through both packs, the repercussions were immediate and far-reaching. In the Northwatch pack, a wave of disbelief and dismay swept over the members. Those who had once admired his strength now struggled to reconcile it with the pain of his abandonment. In the rival Shadowfang, where tensions had always simmered, just below the surface, his departure stoked new fires of resentment and regret. Leaders on both sides grappled with the fallout, attempting to mend the fractures in alliances while contending with the ever-present specter of betrayal. For Aurelia, every reminder of Damien was a dagger to the heart. The vibrant spirit that had once burned within her was now dimmed by a sorrow that seemed to seep into her very bones. The echoes of their past laughter and shared dreams haunted the silent corners of her mind, juxtaposed cruelly against the stark reality of duty. Her responsibilities to the pack, once a source of pride and purpose, now felt like chains, binding her to a life devoid of the passion she once knew. The conflict between what she must do and what she yearned for raged inside her, leaving her caught in a liminal space of despair and disillusionment. In the solitude of the deep, ancient forest, a sanctuary that had once echoed with the vibrancy of her spirit, Aurelia found herself wandering aimlessly. The towering trees and whispering winds, once allies in her adventures, now stood as silent witnesses to her inner torment. With each step, the path before her seemed to mirror the journey of her heart, a road fraught with sacrifice and dotted with the remnants of a life that could no longer be reclaimed. Her eyes, once alight with determination and hope, now held a profound melancholy, reflecting the pain of a love that had been forced to end. Even as the packs began to regroup, and the political machinations resumed their relentless churn, Aurelia felt increasingly estranged from the world she had known. The rituals and traditions that once offered comfort now served as constant reminders of a destiny she never wished to embrace. Her soul, scarred by the bitter taste of betrayal, cried out for a solace that seemed forever out of reach. The promise of redemption, whispered in ancient legends and carried on the wind, appeared as a distant mirage, an unattainable dream amidst the harsh reality of loss. In the quiet hours before dawn, with the weight of the night pressing heavily upon her, Aurelia came to a decision that would change everything. She stood at the edge of the forest, where the familiar trails dissolved into a shrouded unknown. The once comforting embrace of the woods now felt like a vast, impersonal expanse, a realm where every shadow echoed her solitude. It was here, under the watchful gaze of a pale, indifferent moon, that she made her final, agonizing choice. Her heart, battered and weary from the relentless tug-of-war between duty and desire, whispered a sorrowful farewell to the life she once knew. With eyes brimming with unshed tears and a soul laden with the burden of irrevocable loss, Aurelia resolved to disappear from the world of werewolves altogether. The decision was not made lightly. It was born of a need to escape the relentless pain of betrayal and the crushing expectations of a destiny that no longer resonated with her. In that haunting moment, as the first light of dawn began to chase away the remnants of night, Aurelia took one final lingering look at the world she was about to abandon. The forest, with its ancient silent wisdom, bore witness to her promise, a promise to leave behind the chains of duty and the memories of a love that had been both her salvation and her undoing. With a final whispered goodbye that trembled on the edge of hope and despair, she stepped into the obscurity of the wild, vanishing like a wisp of mist among the trees. The packs, the legacy of blood and honor, and the bitter remnants of a once fiery romance were left behind in the silence of her departure. And as the sun rose higher in the sky, casting long shadows on a world forever altered by her absence, a lingering question remained. Could there ever be redemption for hearts so broken? Or was this the final chapter? In the silent aftermath of her departure, as the forest slowly awoke to a new day, Aurelia wandered aimlessly through a landscape that had once been her sanctuary. The weight of solitude pressed upon her like a shroud, each step echoing the finality of her decision. Yet amid the overwhelming despair, a sudden, inexplicable change stirred deep within her, a whisper of life that defied the desolation of her heart. One morning, when the first gentle rays of sunlight filtered through the canopy, Aurelia paused beside a clear, reflective pool. The water, undisturbed and pure, mirrored not only the sky but also the subtle shifts in her own form. As she gazed at her reflection, a shocking realization began to unfurl within her. Her body was changing in ways she had never anticipated. A peculiar warmth radiated from her core, and an odd fluttering sensation rippled beneath her skin as if an unseen force was awakening a dormant secret. Aurelia's breath caught in her throat. In that fragile moment of clarity, she understood the truth that had silently taken root. She was pregnant. The revelation struck her like a bolt of lightning, electrifying her senses and shaking the very foundations of her identity. For years, her life had been defined by the fierce spirit of the wolf within her, a primal force that had guided her through battles, betrayals, and the bitter solitude of her departure. Now, in this single, overwhelming moment, she was forced to confront a destiny that was both unexpected and irrevocable. The shock was not merely physical. It seeped into the depths of her soul. Memories of the passion she once shared with Damien surged forth, mingling with the bitter taste of loss and the remnants of shattered dreams. Yet, as the initial shock subsided, a tender, almost miraculous hope began to bloom within her. This new life, fragile yet undeniable, promised a future that was entirely its own. A future not dictated solely by the harsh dictates of ancient rivalries and duty, but by the pure, unfiltered potential of creation. In the solitude of the forest, Aurelia found herself locked in an internal battle. On one side was the legacy of her wolf nature, the raw power, the fierce instincts, and the untamed spirit that had long defined her existence. On the other lay the delicate promise of motherhood, a gentle yet formidable force that could nurture new life and perhaps mend the wounds of the past. The transformation was bittersweet. As the primal essence that had once given her strength began to wane, it was replaced by a profound tenderness, a vulnerability that was both frightening and beautiful. She wandered along a narrow trail, the soft earth beneath her feet, a constant reminder of the life that pulsed within her. The forest, ever mysterious and indifferent, seemed to whisper questions into the cool morning air. What would this child become? Could a new life bridge the divide between duty and desire? Would the sacrifice of her former self be redeemed by the promise of nurturing something entirely new? Aurelia's mind whirled with uncertainty. Every step was a meditation on the delicate balance between loss and hope. The very power that had defined her, the fierce, unyielding spirit of the wolf, was now slipping away, replaced by the tender responsibilities of impending motherhood. The thought was agonizing, to forsake the strength that had carried her through so many trials, and to embrace a destiny where her identity would be irrevocably altered. Yet, in the midst of that profound sacrifice, there lay an ember of possibility, a chance to rebuild her world on the fragile promise of new life. As the sun climbed higher, casting dappled light through the ancient trees, Aurelia found a secluded glade where she could finally pause and reflect. In the quiet solitude of nature's embrace, she allowed herself to feel the full spectrum of her emotions. The heartache of her lost power, the bittersweet joy of the new life within, and the overwhelming responsibility of a destiny that had been thrust upon her without warning. It was a moment of raw, unfiltered introspection. A time when every heartbeat resonated with both grief and hope. The future lay before her as a path shrouded in both uncertainty and promise. In that stillness, Aurelia realized that her life would never be the same again. The choices she now faced were the most profound of her existence: to continue on the path of solitude, leaving behind the world of werewolves and the bitter memories of betrayal, or to embrace this new destiny, one that would require a complete transformation of her being. The child growing inside her was not merely a symbol of hope. It was a catalyst for change, a beacon that could lead her toward a future where her sacrifice might. As twilight began to soften the edges of the day, Aurelia sat beneath an ancient oak, its gnarled branches a silent witness to her internal turmoil. In the fading light, with the soft murmur of the forest around her, she whispered a final, trembling vow to the night, a promise to decide her fate, for herself and for the child who now held the power to redefine her destiny. With her heart pounding in her ears and her soul trembling on the brink of transformation, she knew that the choice ahead was the most daunting of all. Could she truly forsake the fierce wolf that had been her guide and embrace a life shaped by maternal duty and tender hope? The night's silence deepened, and in that profound quiet, Aurelia's fate hung in the balance. A choice that would determine whether she could ever reclaim the power she had lost, or if she would forever be transformed by the new life growing inside her. A year had passed since the weight of loss and sacrifice had reshaped Aurelia's life, and as winter's icy grip began to recede, a new dawn emerged, soft, tentative, and filled with the promise of renewal. The stark, barren landscape of winter transformed slowly into a gentle tapestry of budding greens and pastel hues, as if nature herself was mending the wounds of the past. The once frozen forest now whispered of hope, and with each warming breeze, the promise of a new beginning grew stronger. Nestled deep within this rejuvenated wilderness was a solitary cabin, its weathered wood and stone walls bearing the quiet testimony of countless seasons. It stood isolated yet resilient, a sanctuary where Aurelia had found solace and a semblance of peace. Within the modest confines of her refuge, silence had become both companion and comfort. Here, every creak of the floor, every rustle of the wind through the pines spoke of enduring life and the soft rhythms of time. The cabin was not a grand palace, but it held a beauty all its own, a testament to the strength found in simplicity and the enduring light that flickered even in the darkest nights. At the heart of this quiet life was her son, a gentle soul named Sky, whose bright eyes and curious smile embodied the hope of a future unburdened by the tragedies of old. Sky was her constant reminder that even in the midst of loss, life had a way of blossoming anew. Every morning, as Aurelia rose with the dawn, she would watch him play amid the dew-kissed wildflowers that framed the cabin, their laughter mingling with the song of birds heralding the arrival of spring. In those tender moments, the sacrifices of the past, every ache, every tear, seemed to transform into a quiet strength, a fierce determination to nurture and protect the new life that had emerged from the remnants of her former self. Yet, even as healing took root in the gentle cadence of everyday life, the past maintained its spectral presence. The memory of Damien, with his piercing eyes and the fervor of a love that had defied destiny, lingered like a ghost at the edge of her solitude. His absence had been a cavernous void, one that time struggled to fill, and in the silent, reflective hours of the night, Aurelia found herself haunted by the echoes of their once unbreakable bond. Her heart, scarred yet resilient, carried both the pain of betrayal and the soft, stubborn glimmer of hope that perhaps, one day, fate would mend what had been broken. On an evening when the sky was painted in hues of twilight, violet, amber, and a whisper of rose, Aurelia sat on the worn wooden porch of her cabin. The air was cool and fragrant with the scent of pine and fresh rain, and somewhere in the distance, the murmur of a nearby stream joined the chorus of night. As she cradled Sky in her arms, watching him drift into a peaceful sleep beneath the watchful eyes of the stars, her thoughts wandered to the years past, a journey marked by sacrifice, sorrow, and the slow, painful healing of a wounded spirit. In the stillness of that moment, a faint sound stirred in the darkness, a rustle, almost imperceptible, like the soft steps of a long-forgotten memory returning. Aurelia's heart skipped a beat as she peered into the shadows, her eyes straining to discern the source of the sound. There, at the edge of the clearing, emerged a solitary figure, cloaked in the subtle luminescence of the night. It was Damien, his presence as enigmatic as it was unexpected. His eyes, deep and searching, held a quiet intensity that spoke of battles fought within. For a heartbeat, time seemed to suspend as the two stood in silent acknowledgement of the past that bound them, a past of forbidden love, bitter betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of redemption. In that fraught, fragile moment, the air between them vibrated with unspoken words and tentative possibilities. The world around them, from the gentle rustling of leaves to the distant call of night creatures, seemed to hold its breath, as if sensing the gravity of their reunion. Aurelia's gaze, tender yet resolute, met Damien's, a silent conversation passing between them. It was a conversation of lost time and lingering questions, of love that had been both a sanctuary and a storm. And as the night deepened and the stars shimmered with an almost celestial clarity, an open-ended question lingered in the cool air. Would the rekindling of their bond be a step toward healing, or merely the reopening of old wounds? With Sky safely nestled inside, unaware of the tumultuous emotions playing out on the porch, Aurelia remained motionless, her heart caught in the delicate balance between hope and despair. The soft glow of the cabin's lanterns illuminated their figures in a halo of gentle light, and in that suspended moment, the promise of a new beginning shimmered alongside the ghosts of the past. The night, like an ancient storyteller, whispered its secrets, leaving Aurelia and the audience with an invitation to imagine what the future might hold. Would fate finally allow the lost mates to find each other again? Or would the scars of old betrayals forever dictate their destinies? As the reunion hung in the air, unresolved and laden with the weight of all that had been sacrificed, the promise of renewal mingled with the lingering uncertainty, inviting all to ponder. In the tapestry of destiny, is love ever truly lost? Or does it wait, quietly, for a new dawn to break?